Former President Trump's actions preceded the riot were a disgraceful dereliction of duty.
There is no room in the Republican Party for anti-Semitism or white supremacy. And anyone meeting with people advocating that point of view, in my judgment, are highly unlikely to ever be elected President of the United States. Anyone seeking the presidency who thinks that the Constitution could somehow be suspended or not followed, it seems to me would have a very hard time being sworn in as President of the United States.
Well, Mitch McConnell's thoughts on Donald Trump have not changed, and that's pretty clear in a new biography that includes interviews and quotes from the Republican senator, the longtime Republican senator. Now, he ripped into Trump's voters in a shockingly brazen way as well. So the Associated Press's Michael Tackett wrote this upcoming biography titled The Price of Power. And these quotes were obtained ahead of the book's release. So I'm gonna give you a little taste. This is what McConnell had to say. Quote, "I think Trump was the biggest factor in changing the Republican Party from what Ronald Reagan viewed and he wouldn't recognize today." I think that's actually correct. I think Donald Trump was the single most disruptive figure within the Republican Party. And I'm gonna give you my reasons for why, but McConnell also added that the former president has, quote, "done a lot of damage to our party's image and our ability to compete." That I actually, to some extent, disagree with. I mean, obviously he gave that quote before this current moment where we're seeing the Democratic candidate have an incredibly difficult time beat Donald Trump in the general election for president. However, I mean, when you go back to the 2022 midterms, it is true that the various candidates for congressional seats that Donald Trump endorsed had a real difficult time winning. In fact, a lot of them lost because a lot of them were unhinged, right? Dr. Oz was an example. The athlete, his name is
Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker, exactly. So
this is bifurcated. So Mitch McConnell is going to say something in a second that we're going to share with you guys that I absolutely hate so much that it makes me think, well, at least Donald Trump got him to admit this and is against Mitch McConnell for this as well. But on this one, here's what I mean. When Donald Trump takes the Republican Party in a populist direction, he's not hurting them, he's greatly helping them. The country's in a very populist mood, and that's not just my opinion, it's the opinion of the American people according to the polling. Economic populism is massively popular. I read you stats a couple of days ago on the show, 2/3 to 3/4 of the country say, stick up for the average guy and make sure you're fighting against big business, giant corporations, etc. Right? Mitch McConnell is a great defender of big business and giant corporations, so he hates that kind of talk, but it helps Republicans win, okay? And they've been lying about this before too, that we're for the average guy, etc., but never convincingly. And now Trump has done it in a way that appears to be authentic, and that leads us to the second part. The guys that he supports don't win, and they have hurt the Republican Party, because they don't have what is the same perceived authenticity that Trump does. Trump is a deranged guy, but he at least doesn't use a teleprompter most of the time. And so he has the aura of a real person. And so people say, okay, I know he's lying, which is kind of strange for an authentic guy, right? But at least he sounds real. But the guys he's supporting are just as extreme as him, but not as authentic seeming, not as charming seeming, not charming to me, right? But charming to Republicans, etc.
He seems like a real person to his supporters. And look, I think an example of it is the whole Arnold Palmer being, gifted in his nether regions. Like to us, it's like, what is he doing? But I think for rally goers who seem to enjoy that moment, he just seems like a real person, an authentic individual.
100%. No, I got no problem with Donald Trump being inappropriate. I got a problem with Donald Trump being crazy. So when you want to talk about Peoples Johnson's, have at it. I don't care. I don't believe in decorum. Okay.
Obviously.
Right. But if you say, right now we should attack our political opponents and put them in jail for nothing, not even for breaking the law, and we should maybe shoot peace protesters because I'm anti-war. Okay. No. That's unhinged. Terminating the Constitution is unhinged. Saying weird stuff like a regular person would. Okay, if it ruffles the feathers of the cable news guys, that's only a win for the Republican Party.
So Mitch McConnell made clear that he has no love for Donald Trump, but certainly has no love for his supporters, which is a pretty ballsy thing to say considering the fact that the Republican base loves Donald Trump. The majority of his base, of the Republican base, loves Donald Trump. And so when you're trashing Trump supporters, you're essentially trashing the vast majority of Republican voters. But nonetheless, here's what McConnell had to say about them. Trump is appealing to people who haven't been as successful as other people and providing an excuse for that these more successful people have somehow been cheated and you don't deserve to think of yourself as less successful because things haven't been fair.
Wow.
That is telling. That is telling.
That is Mitch McConnell saying, I work for the rich. I've always worked for the rich. The rich are better than you. And the fact that now Donald Trump has got you thinking that they're not better than you really, really bothers me. You should know your role.
No,
that's why I said this quote almost makes me want to support Donald Trump just to spite Mitch McConnell.
No, because what he's saying there is, oh, the Republican voters who support Donald Trump support him because they're just salty about the fact they're unable to reach success, right?
Yeah.
Like they're losers and they're looking for someone else to blame as opposed to taking personal responsibility. That's the message there.
You just said that about the entire Republican base. That's him saying, I don't like the poors and the middle class. I like my millionaire and billionaire donor friends who I work for. So look, anybody who watches this show knows I got no love for Donald Trump. And I cannot put him back into office because he keeps talking about terminating the Constitution. But when he's juxtaposed to Mitch McConnell, that's the only time where I go, well, man, it turns out there is something worse. And that is why his revolt against these Mitch McConnells, minus his insanity, is a positive thing. I wish there would be a non-insane revolt on our side against our politicians who are just as corrupt as Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. But he also says that the MAGA movement is completely wrong. Now, after Trump lost the election back in 2020, McConnell said his behavior was erratic. Unfortunately, about half the Republicans in the country believe whatever Trump says. I think I'm pretty safe in saying it's not just the Democrats who are counting the days until he leaves on January 20th, but the Republicans as well. And then finally, the Kentucky Republican did not mince words, calling Trump a sleazeball, a narcissist, and saying that the former president is stupid as well as being ill-tempered. He added that Trump is not very smart. What is that word?
Irascible.
Irascible, okay. I have not heard that word before. Nasty, just about every quality you would not want somebody to have.
Irascible is kind of temperamental, quick to anger.
No, I love it. I'm gonna use it now because it sounds fun. Irascible.
Yeah. Although sometimes you and I are irascible.
We're super irascible. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
So it implies that you're a little bit wrong in your ill-tempered status.
Sometimes our nerves get to us and we lose it. It happens.
That's okay. So look, overall, now on this part, I agree with Mitch McConnell. Donald Trump, not very bright, mean, obsessed with himself, con man, hates democracy, doesn't care about it, etc. That is true. So this is the politicians in America constantly leaving us with absolutely no choice. So we all know Mitch McConnell's of the world, and yes, Democrats, I hate to break your heart, but your Democratic leadership is on the same team as Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden are the two lead negotiators on almost every tax cut bill and on every war, on every single terrible things that's happened in this country. You go back, you'll read the newspapers from the 1990s to the 2010s to now. Biden and McConnell make a deal. Turns out the rich are gonna get richer.
That was the bipartisanship that Biden would talk about in his first campaign for president.
Yeah, so I always mention this. 2016, I saw this bumper sticker on a car that was perfect. It said Meteor 2016. That's the candidate they wanted, and that's the candidate they got. So they got a Meteor that disrupted this corrupt system. I love that he disrupted it, but I don't love that he's insane and says we should terminate the Constitution if he loses.
You know, if Trump had a modicum of self-control, and if he didn't say incredibly dumb and dangerous things like that, oh, he would totally crush. I mean, the Democrats right now would have no chance, zero chance. I mean, his lead would be so incredibly wide.
If you minus all of his crazy talk and all of his anti-democratic talk and the shooting the protesters and all using the military against the American people, you minus all of that, right? You might still massively disagree with Donald Trump on economic issues. He gives corporate tax cuts on immigration, etc. But whether you agree or disagree with him, he would win in a massive landslide. And so, by the way, now I see MAGA guys on social media agreeing with us on that, going, yeah, can he please shut up about the 2020 election? We could win this thing so easy.
They're right.
If he would just shut his stupid mouth.
But he can't help himself. He really can't. Now, I'm gonna go to Trump's reaction to all of this in just a minute, but first I wanna show you the favorability among Republican voters toward Donald Trump versus Mitch McConnell. So the reality is that Trump's brand of politics is much more popular than that of Mitch McConnell and his ilk. So let's take a look at this chart. This is Mitch McConnell's favorability. 57% of Republicans have an unfavorable view of Mitch McConnell, while only 31% have a favorable view. Meanwhile, let's take a gander at Donald Trump's favorability. Only 11% of Republicans have an unfavorable view of Trump, while 88% have a favorable view, and that's the 88% that Mitch McConnell just insulted. But Mitch McConnell is apparently unconcerned with being wildly unpopular with the Republican base, and welcomes Trump's ire. He says, every time he takes a shot at me, I think it's good for my reputation.
Do you think so, Mitch?
Well, let's see. He did take a shot at you over these recent comments that were published. So let's take a look at what he had to say about it.
Mitch McConnell is a loser.
We do have to do something about Mitch McConnell. He's a disaster. These Washington Republicans like Mitch McConnell is the absolute worst. I had to fight Mitch McConnell, another beauty. Mitch McConnell and his wife, Coco Chow. Coco. We got to get the McConnells of the world to do their job.
Okay, my bad. I thought those were gonna be comments after he found out about what Mitch McConnell said in this biography. They're not. Those are the shots that Donald Trump had been taking against Mitch McConnell, and Mitch McConnell's favorability is trash. So apparently he was wrong about his theory, no?
Yeah, and he thought he was gonna get Donald Trump to be unpopular within the Republican Party. How'd that work out for you, Mitch? So now finally we come to the hilarious part where Mitch McConnell buckles. And he says, here, I'll do graphic 10 for you guys. Whatever I may have said about President Trump pales in comparison to what J.D. Vance, Lindsey Graham, and others have said about him. But we're all on the same team now.
Unmanned.
So
totally unmanned. I mean, that is the thing that Donald Trump does excel at. Unmanning all sorts of Republican leadership that we have loathed, at least for the entirety of my career. Yep. And so to see this is enjoyable, I will admit.
Yeah, so but back to Mitch, he called your wife Coco Chow. And McConnell said that she was really frazzled by that because she'd never taken a political punch like that in her life, let alone one that's over the top racist for no reason. And in kind of an inexplicable way, right? And what's Mitch McConnell doing now? He's right back to shining Donald Trump's boots. What happened, Mitch? I thought you were a tough guy. I thought you were going to take on that sleazeball. I thought you were going to be more popular than him. No, now you're going to retire in shame and spend the rest of your career licking the boots of the guy that you hate and that insulted your wife? Because, Mitch, we all know what you really are. You're a bitch. Oh my God. And you've always been a bitch for the donors, and now you're a bitch for Trump.
So, you know, sometimes it feels good to see someone that we've hated for so long fall, so.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.